I'm Dr. Jonathan Leary, CEO and founder of Remedies, the world's first social wellness club. And on today's podcast, we talked about just the importance of, your intuition, in your trust in your healthcare team, and how to regain your health independence.
3, 2, 1.
Back in Remedy Place. Jonathan, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you for having me.
This place, I just got to tell for all of you listening, watching, is the first time I walked in here, I was like, wow, just the aesthetics of everything, the feel of it, because I came in, like a lot of people do, seeking improvement for their mind, body, and soul, health and wellness, recovery, drip therapy, cryo, IR sauna. But just immediately walking into a place like this, you just know that you're in the right place for that.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick little breakdown on the aesthetic of wellness?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. When I think of aesthetic, I think of environment. And when I think of environment, I think of that as an integral part of our healing process. So I like to say that we're designed to heal. The club is to create a setting that will maximize your healing potential and to help maximize whatever you're doing in the space that day. I think from a clinical setting, when people go into a hospital or a clinic, there's a thing called white coat syndrome. People are scared. It's a scary thing to go into these places where you're scared to know, like, is there something wrong with me? Or this is because of an emergency, or I'm not feeling good. And your guard's up. And what I was an accidental finding with my practice before Remedy, I was just a concierge doctor, so I was doing house calls or traveling tour with my patients. And, when someone lets you in their home, their guard's down. They're in their comfort zone.
Home turf.
Yeah, home turf. Yeah. But and they also trusted me more. Like, if someone lets you in their home, they trust you.
That says a lot.
It says a lot. So I think what I found, my practice was very different for many reasons, but I think one of the main reasons why I had so much success in my recovery process was because I was at their home.
Wow.
And think, like, if an average doctor visit in America is 8 minutes, good luck calming someone down when they feel anxious or uncomfortable in 8 minutes.
Good luck building trust in 8 minutes.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with pain or like surgery prevention, someone's already in so much, like, so uncomfortable. It's kind of wild. So, like, for them to be at their home and in their safe zone, it allowed them to have their guard down faster. So it allowed me to get more of a breakthrough within the treatment faster.
Amazing. So
the whole part of the club behind the front, the lobby and the bar, is made to look like a home, because I found in my practice that, that's where people maximally heal and recover. And I don't want white coat syndrome. I want the exact opposite.
I want living room
Yeah,
syndrome.
exactly. And then, when we're asking people, like, we can go into Remedy Place and the whole purpose, but, we're trying to create an environment that enhances their health and their social life at the same time. So it's not like a spa where you go and isolate yourself in every room. Everything here you're supposed to do together. It's what we call social self-care. We're kind of coined this term.
That's right. Yeah.
It's bringing human connection back into the healing. But if I'm saying, hey, let's substitute where you bring a date, or where you meet your buddies after work, or where you go instead of a brunch on Sunday, or your birthday or corporate outing, it's not too much of a juxtaposition if I say, hey, let's meet at the Remedy bar versus the bar at the Addition. No, we're not serving alcohol. But the fundamentals of sitting at a bar and having a drink, whether it's alcohol or not, isn't too much of a change. So I thought, from a psychological perspective, really, how can we make it a simple transition when we're just substituting the environment for where they're socializing?
I love how you have that kind of framework to the end goal you're after. And what you're talking about is just the fundamentals of behavior change.
Yeah.
It's what are people already doing that we can kind of stealthily, ninja slide a better option, or just a different option that is more in congruence with the goals that they want or you're working together on to achieve.
And you have to make it simple.
Yeah.
Like, if introducing self-care to the world as a luxury or something that isn't something that you do occasionally and something that I want people to do every day, you have to make a simplistic change that makes sense.
Right.
If, like, I'm like, hey, let's do a cryo meeting instead of having a coffee at a coffee shop, or instead of, expensing a steak dinner and a bottle of wine, let's get IVs and talk business. It's crazy enough where it like makes people laugh,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not crazy enough people are like, oh, like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's really like I spent so much time not only on what's here and the science behind our treatments and the like how it's designed, but also like how can we make these shifts in people's lives, and what's that psychological perspective of understanding psychology and then finding ways to make people understand it. And we had a meeting. We're about to bring on this new team, a new part to our team, and he's like, Jonathan, the best compliment I can tell you is that you've created something so original, but also so simple. And he's like, that is the key to something that is going to be really big. And he goes, I don't want you to take that the wrong way. He goes, this is the biggest compliment I could ever give you. And he's this huge marketer. He was a former CMO for a really big company that just sold. And he's like, this is something, you know? And it was kind of cool. And it's right.
Yeah.
It's like trying to make it simple.
Yeah.
Trying to make anything simple is the hardest thing. And I think simplicity is the key to happiness. So if you can also build a company that's original and simple, but then also make it simple for people to understand, because education is everything, especially when we're trying to build new habits.
Yeah. Simplicity is not exactly the hand you were dealt this last year and a half.
Our world is not simple.
The world was not given a simple deck. So how did you forge through? How did you push through this anti-simplicity hand when what you were after was helping, healing, and especially in a social way?
Yeah.
That was
a big component taken out.
Yeah. It was a little bit of friction this last year. So.
Yeah. It was a really scary thing, if I'm being fully transparent. I spent 9 years working on this concept, and like
9 years.
9 years. I started my business plan. I would work every Sunday through my doctorate on like building out this. I couldn't, and this is a whole nother story. I couldn't open Remedy when I graduated because I had no money. I thought you could just get a business loan. Not that easy. Had a practice for 5 years, added 5 more years of clinical evidence, and just like market research. What do my patients want? What does the industry need? All of that went into this business concept. But I finally opened January, right before the pandemic, and
January 2020.
2020, and then March came around. I had 2 months of the most. Every dream was just coming true. We were busy. The people reaching out, every person that I wanted to talk to within like the next 5 years business-wise, we were having meetings with. We were flying all over the country. It was just this crazy thing, and I was like, wow, like this is about to explode. And then, when I saw, hey, you're gonna close for 2 weeks, I was like, oh no, we can't do this.
It did explode, just not in the way you were hoping.
Yeah, but I mean, granted, like those conversations still kept going, but as a new business owner, like my practice was just me. Now I had a team. I care for my patients, I care for my family and my friends, and I'm more like I'm a caregiver. But now I had a responsibility for all these people that I hired, and it all of a sudden, you have all these emotions that are also really scared. And you're like, what are we gonna do? Is the company gonna be okay? What about my career? And it was a really difficult thing for me because it was the first time that I had to like really, their lives in a way were like in my hand,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't want to let them down. Like this is my first team,
Their livelihood. For a lot of
and
people.
also, we were about to open a raise. We had verbal commitments. We were going through legal stages. I thought all this money was coming in for our expansion, so that we started overspending those first 2 months. I don't know if this is TMI for our podcast, but like we were preparing for this next version of Remedy, and luckily we didn't get through the leases that we were about to sign. But then we had this money going out the door, and to have a lease on Sunset and a team of salaries,
It's no small feat.
no small feat. And then you realize, like, okay, it's not 2 weeks. Oh, it's going to be a couple months. And then, oh wait, we didn't get our first round of RSB, this loan, this SBA loan. And it's like, oh no, like eventually you run out of money.
Yeah.
So it was having the emotions of my team and making sure that they were okay, understanding like, what do I need to do right now? Like, What do I have to sacrifice? What's my plan B? Because if we don't get this loan, we don't get this governmental relief, like how do I make sure everyone's okay?
Yeah.
And how do I make sure Remedy keeps going? So so that was crazy and wild. But, it's definitely a couple hard months. Figured it out. We eventually got help with that loan, which definitely helped push us over. We closed for 3 months-ish.
That's right. Yeah.
To make sure the team was safe, make sure every guest that walked in was safe. That was our number one priority. We didn't have to close. We under my license, we were an essential business.
I was gonna say, aren't you essential? Yeah.
But I didn't know. Like we didn't know anything about
Nobody
it,
knew.
and I didn't want to compromise anyone's health. So we did the right thing and closed. And then when we reopened, we were like, oh, we'll open a couple days a week for a couple hours just to see if people come in. And then I think it was when July came around, we opened back up most days for a couple hours, and people just started flooding back in. We were only able to do 20% utilization of the treatments at any given time.
Yeah.
Because it was a tricky gray area. It wasn't that we probably could have done more, but also there's no point to be greedy and have this place full. So we stopped all of our classes, stopped the bar and lounge, stopped all of our events, corporate outings, all of these big things that we were doing, mostly all the social things, we can't be like, oh, we're the social wellness club.
Which was like
we were like, we're
push.
not a social wellness club. We're back to just being a wellness club. And it was interesting, but like I was telling you before, we just learned so much, and it slowed us down. It allowed me to work on my self-growth. It allowed me a lot more time to figure out all the things that are going to be major benefits of the company in the future, because I had so much time and the team had so much time to really rethink through a lot of these processes and just prepare us. And I think society, now people understand, how important their health is, and that they're in control of their health, and like your body and your mind is your number one asset.
Absolutely.
And I think, granted all this happening, like before in my practice, I saw this trend to understand like self-care. I don't usually use the word recovery because I think people have that negative connotation. So I really like to say like preventative care, self-care. There was a growing trend there, and specifically on the holistic side of healthcare, huge growing trend. And I just saw it like this next 10, 20, 30 years is going to explode. And I think the rocket ship that was going to inevitably already happen in this industry, this pandemic just pushed it way further.
It was a turbo boost on this cause. Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Yeah.
Like I really think I'm like, wow, there's a reason for everything.
Of course.
Universally.
We give reason to it.
Yeah. Universally, whatever that reason is, it was good for me. It was good for the business. It was good for society. I think society in a way that, like, it's a wake up. Every day I see patients, and, I don't take my health for granted. I don't treat my body poorly because I have patients that would give up everything in their life to have good health. And for me, I've always had this, it's in my face every day. It's like, why would you mistreat your body? Why aren't you taking care of yourself? Because, like I said, I'm so grateful that I can move, that I can breathe, that I can see that I don't have these chronic issues. And I think the pandemic is that for the world of like, wow, I lost someone that was really special to me. Or, like this really destroyed me for a couple weeks, or, like I'm still not the same. And it's like now indirectly when we're looking at the positive of it, it's like, I think it's time that I really start looking at my health.
Was there ever a moment when that wasn't your philosophy? Was there a catalytic moment? Was it an injury? Was it a loss?
No. It's this weird thing. I've always been in the health and wellness industry. Starting when I was 17 or 18, I started training people. I was always just really fascinated about the human body. I think, actually, I lied. Oh, not about that. I think when I started working on cadavers in school, I was so fascinated with the human body and understanding like the cause of death, and then dissecting all these bodies where I was like looking at their insides.
Wow.
Based on the trauma or being an alcoholic or having diabetes. And like,
You got to see the
I got to
damage done.
see, because I think what people don't see is you can look like a Victoria's Secret model. I say this all the time, or a pro athlete, and be so toxic on the inside. And yes, if you're on the opposite spectrum and you're, overweight, obviously there's going to be things that are happening inside. But it was a real wake up call, because through college, everyone, has a little fun, but
a lot of fun.
a lot of fun, a lot of fun for sure. But seeing just like people, I think the one big thing that I noticed was like average, like people that drank a lot or alcoholics, or just people that, you have their whole medical profile there, and just looking at their livers and seeing how disgusting. And I just remember being like, we don't see anything that's happening inside of us.
Yeah.
And it's so sad and so scary at the same time, because most people,
It's like the air filter in our car. We can check that out.
Yeah,
Look at it all the time, but we
most
can't.
people will never see it.
Yeah.
And
Until it's too late.
Until it's too late. And I think what I like to tell people is, when you see all these college kids or young kids that just eat pizza, drinking every day, and they're like, they have a six pack or they look perfect, and all of a sudden 10 years later, that they don't look like that.
The metabolic damage catches up a little bit.
And it's not like, oh, when you hit 30, you're all of a sudden going downhill. It's kind of funny, because I'm like, I think it takes at least 10 years to show the external damage of the internal damage that you're creating through your younger age.
Yeah, I believe it.
And that's not through like clinical evidence or anything. It's just like, from my perspective, understanding an external thing takes a long time. And when it doesn't take a long time, and we see like our skin break out, or we see being lethargic, like that is like, we know so fast. The body's so smart.
Yeah.
We're so intuitive. Like, our body's telling you, hey, something's not right. And then it's our job not to like ignore it. It's our job to listen to it.
It's interesting you bring that up. I was actually just asked the other day, a friend of mine online was bringing up, I posted something about, I was talking about harmonized water, structured water, and like the immune system of the home. It's a new thing I'm kind of working on. I'm just understanding so much more about what's going on in my home environment in terms of my water, the chemicals, all these other things.
Yeah.
And I posted up something about it. And like, where do you source your information? Like, how do you vet the information? And for me, I was like, well, actually, it's a really interesting question. And I kind of gave him 3 quick replies. And I'm curious if this is a similar process for you. I said, one, I did it professionally for many years. I have higher education, undergrad, grad school. I was in the health and wellness world for many, many years. So I have my kind of professional aspect. 2, personally, I'm in my mid-30s now, and I've gone through life. I've gone through injury. I've gone through a lot of different things, and my wellness journey is about 15 years now. So I have a lot of personal experience of self-test, N=1 kind of stuff. And then third was, I honestly then looked to my peers. Who are the people like you, like Remedy? Who are people that I trust and I've been watching and reading and following for a while, that I know do as much, if not even more, of that homework, research, due diligence, and their clinical experience and professional experience. You said, you don't have this clinical evidence to kind of back up this statement, but you do have a lot of school. You have a lot of personal experience.
And functional medicine with the blood work. Yeah. I lied.
Where do you source for all this stuff? I mean, you say things confidently, but it's not always, hey, I don't have this study to back it up.
It's my thing. This is controversial, but mine's very similar to yours. It's hard for me to really dive too much into research, or read reviews, or look in, like, listening to someone else's perspective. Research is tough. It's like, who's funding it? Who's putting it on? Everything can be biased. Everything can be skewed. There's safety mechanisms in a lot of research, but it's also, I don't know, like, we also are told certain things are true, and then 5 or 10 years later, we find out that it was false. Science is such an interesting thing that it changes.
Science is a process.
Yeah, science is a hypothesis.
Exactly.
It's an educated guess. So I really try to do as much personal, like, clinical evidence and experimentation. And for me, like, a lot of my health thing, anything that implements my health, I'm really monitoring it with my blood work. You know, like these changes do this. How did this shift, or how did this because like an imbalance or this deficiency or whatever it may be?
So would you say is that your kind of primary biomarker you look
Yeah.
at for change?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, you know, blood work and monitoring that on a regular basis gives us that blueprint and that roadmap of exactly what's happening in our body.
Just like Levels, yeah.
Yeah, it's the
Shout out.
levels. Yeah, I love those guys.
Yeah.
And it's even with my practice, people are like, you know, why are you doing things this way? And wasn't that someone told me how to do it? I'm like, okay, I've studied anatomy, I've studied biochemistry, physiology, movement, nutrition, everything, all these things. And I'm like, everything's a puzzle. Like, don't follow the rule book. Don't follow steps because this is what you should do. It's like, try to understand what's happening.
What's the bigger picture?
Yeah, and I think I see that a lot with a lot of rehab where it's like, here's the symptom, this is what's going on, so let's like everything you're taught in school, like follow this protocol for, you know, epicondylitis or whatever it is, and it's like, yeah, but maybe no, and like, but you look at all these other factors and it's not so black and white, and I think that experimentation of practicing and doing my own research and clinical evidence on myself and with my patients has always kind of skewed, but it's hard for me to like listen to somebody's story and try to follow it or listen. I like to get influenced and inspired. I like to get inspired by people's words, and try not to get influenced by people's words. You know, I
like that.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because we live in a society where, you know, we want to follow, we want to listen to these experts, but everyone has their own path and their own journey, and especially with health, and no one's program is going to fit everyone's program. I think there's things that across the board are going to help, but I really like to make sure that I have my own individualized approach and like, what is my innovation? What is my thought process? And if I'm doing my research, you know, what would I do versus what did they do?
Yeah.
I don't know if that came off the right way, but like,
I understand for sure. Something I'll share with you that I didn't share with you before was actually if I did like the opposite of what you said. If I did like a lot of people do, and you just accept truth as truth, especially in the medical world, the science world, the wellness world, I would not be here. Quite literally, possibly not sitting. I actually suffered career-ending injuries in the military.
wow.
I had to learn how to walk again twice.
So you get it.
And I had orthopedic surgeons, doctors, rehab specialists. I had Uncle Sam tell me, like, hey, you will not ever be back at this level that you were used to. And if I listen to them,
That's so unfair.
it is. It was, that's a whole other episode. It's like an identity crisis. It was just the rug of life yanked out from underneath me. And at 24 years old, too. And so if I listened to them, I would have just accepted that as truth. I probably would have capped my physical rehabilitation potential. I would have definitely capped my mental health because I would have just accepted this new life, this new identity of limitations.
Yeah.
But I said, screw that. And when I got out, it became my mission to study the human body. And that's why I went to school. And that's why I did all these things. And I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you if I had accepted the truth from those people.
That's the thing is no one can tell you your truth. Like, you know, like no one should ever say never, especially with things that we don't know. And I think from health, but also life, you know, I was always told like, you're dreaming too big. Oh, you can't do that with your business plan. Like
That doesn't exist.
Yeah, like my remedy concept that I presented in my last year of school in my business class of like, this is what I'm doing for practice. Oh, that's not going to work. Or like, all right, I'm going to do a private practice. That's a concierge practice. No one's going to do that. Like,
people aren't going to pay for their health.
yeah, like, no, but it's just like, I think it's the worst thing that any human can do to tell somebody that something isn't possible because we don't know, you know? And I think, especially with someone's health, I see it all the time because I've dealt with a lot of different types of cases. And to handicap somebody by putting a label on them and tell them that they can't do something, even from a psychosomatic standpoint, like what good is that going to do? If you're ever uninspiring your patient and you're not creating hope, you are creating a terrible like snowball effect into like every aspect of their life. You know, like
cataclysmic.
Yeah, like think of like if you like you said, if you listened to those people and said you'll never do this again, you know you're told to you want trust in people, especially in your health team, you know, your healthcare providers. And if being told that leads to shifting your whole life, you know, like you're lucky that you had the mental capacity where you were strong enough to be like, no, I can do this and I'm gonna get through this. And I think a lot of people, especially with this everything going on with people's mental health, a lot of people don't have that capability yet. And this also just puts them further into the ground, you know? And I think that's a big part of every treatment that I have with a patient or any one-on-one is just like, how do we get you in that mental state? And like, how do I inspire you? Because I can't make you healthy.
Right.
I can only teach you. I can be there to support you and to care and give you the plan, but it's up to you. And you know, if one of the biggest goals of Remedy is to give people their own health independence. I don't want them dependent on our healthcare system. I don't want them dependent on me. I want them to be independent, you know, and proactive, not reactive. And I say this all the time, and that's education.
Yeah.
And part of that education is to like pump people up, you know, like how we're going to get you better.
Yeah.
I always tell people like,
inspire, not influence,
like,
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we're going to get you better, you know, like that's the thing. Like my goal when you come in Remedy Place is you're always going to leave feeling better, you know? And
it's true. I do.
Yeah. Like,
you do people.
It was so funny because the marketing team that we might hire, they're like, you know, how did you come up with, you know, like that slogan that, it's not a slogan, but like people always leave feeling better. I'm like, you know, it wasn't our slogan. Now, after almost being open for 2 years, this is what we're told every day.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, this is our clinical evidence. Like, this is what people say.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of this phrase. I think it was at a conference years ago that always, I just kept top of mind when I was in my health coaching practice. And that was, it's not my responsibility to lead you to water. It's right. You can't lead you can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink, kind of thing. It is my responsibility to just get you to realize how thirsty you are.
Yeah.
And then from there, like, let's go to the water fountain kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's a beautiful thing. It's like that's what we're supposed to be doing as humans, like this human connection and helping each other and having pure intentions and being a good person. Like that's all life is, you know, like and good things happen when you do that. You know, it's something that the more you dive into that and the more that those intentions are pure and you're willing to put in the work, I think like even the birth of Remedy and like the story behind it is really, you know, it's just everything's like this weird magnetic pull to the company, and it's like just attracting so much, and we're not chasing anything, and it's cool to see we're in it for like a really strong mission. You know, we're really making an impact in people's lives, and I think this is my biggest passion and my biggest dream come true. And like the more I dive deeper into it, and the team now is expanding, and they all understand that, and they all feel the same mission and that same purpose in life, just more stuff happens. And that's like the beauty. And I want to inspire entrepreneurs or even non-entrepreneurs, just like do what you're supposed to do something that you love, work really hard for it, have right intentions, be a good person, and good shit's gonna happen. You know, like
solid life business plan right there for sure. Yeah. I would love to dive into some of the things that you all actually do and provide here.
Yeah.
I, for one, have love for IV drips, I've done cryotherapy, most frequent the IR sauna.
Yeah.
Walk us through some of the remedies you all provide here, and why did each one of these things make the list, and what are the benefits here?
Everything here is here because I've had at least 5 years of clinical evidence with my patients with these devices.
Wow.
You know, no one pitched me this fancy equipment that was like, this is a game changer. You know, this is gonna, once again, like I don't want to listen to someone trying to pitch me a sale, because at the end of the day, sales is sales. I wanted to explore and actually see it by combining these different things in different sequential orders and timing, and also just looking at cases that I'm bringing on and seeing how much faster they're recovering. And that's why these things are here. And I think that's a little bit different than most of these health places that are popping up, is like, I've done that evidence, you know, that clinical evidence. And I think I know this rise in holistic healthcare. You know, I'm a very like heavily science-backed person. Grew up on the East Coast. Where I grew up, there was nothing holistic or alternative. Kind of fell into this world.
I can attest to that too.
Yeah, saw that it worked. And I'm like, I want Remedy Place to be the leading team of the next wave of expert doctors, but that also happen to be alternative. Not that there's this divide in healthcare of, traditional alternative medicine. I want people to understand that for most things, the first line of intervention should be something holistic.
Like what? Like what, for example?
Like I think of honestly anything, gut issues, autoimmune conditions, early stage, depression, anxiety, pain. Pain's a big one. Gut health is a big one. If you're not making lifestyle changes and doing the things that you need to do, you're not getting to the root cause. And regardless if you ever have to go get surgery or be on a certain medication, you should also 100% be doing something that is shifting your plan.
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
think just seeing that more and more with like this my practice, and I'm like, wow. I started with just surgery prevention and chronic pain rehabilitation, and then when I started doing functional medicine very early in my practice, all of a sudden my patients' autoimmune conditions, gastrointestinal problems, fatigue problems, like pain, like all these things just started disappearing, and they're like, Dr. Leary, I'm not having any more flare-ups.
Yeah.
And then they're like, how did you fix that? And I was like, I didn't fix that. I showed you what your body needed to be back in a balanced state, and your body knows how to heal, and then all of a sudden my practice started exploding in all these different avenues where I started just taking on patients that were just gastrointestinal were just autoimmune. And I would tell them, like, my job is not to treat this condition. It's let me make you as healthy as you can be, and then watch how the body does it. It's
And just
magic.
sit back and watch.
Yeah. So I'm like, one, I really want to inspire this next generation of alternative medicine doctors to be the next top level doctors. You have all these expert doctors that I'm sure that you even interviewed or like you read about. They're in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and it's like, who are these next wave of doctors?
Truly,
And how do we use a platform to put their voice out there to teach? Because at the end goal, I want Remedy Place to be this free educational platform. So, we have all your top alternative medicine doctors, your functional medicine, your naturopaths, your chiropractors, your Chinese medicine, like that's there. So, I like to say, like, those doctors are here to be on your journey, no matter what your journey is, and something that should be an integral part of your healthcare program. And I like to always start with that because, we have a lot of technology, and the technology is really cool. But I even say with the technology is not changing you. Technology is just putting your body in the best state so it knows how to do what it's supposed to be doing. You know?
Honestly, I forgot that for a moment. Like, oh yeah, there are doctors here. There's medical care here because I'm totally just like distracted. Shiny object.
No, but it's
syndrome.
fun. Like,
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. Like, outside of that, we have hyperbaric chambers. Hyperbaric chambers, we wanted to bring mainstream. I was using these with my patients and my athletes, and just seeing how fast people were recovering, it was incredible.
Yeah,
but
it's wild.
It's very expensive, and I'm like, okay, how do we figure out how to bring them mainstream? How do we find a way to make it not look as scary? So, we have these ones custom made so they don't look like these crazy submarines or
Really?
like
Wow.
a big, like, these blow up tubes that people are really, claustrophobic in. Those are amazing. Obviously, the infrared saunas, love them. We commercialize ice. This is another one of my favorites. We commercialize ice baths in a way that's never been done.
Yeah.
So
you guys turn them into parties.
Yeah, so we do breathwork ice bath classes. So
it's lit.
just like you would book into a Soul Cycle or a Barry's, you book into a breathwork ice bath class. They happen every 30 minutes in the club. This was a tester, something that I always did on my retreats. But I'm like, how do I put this in a commercial setting, and how do I also make sure it's smart for the business? Figured out a way to do it, and we're doubling down. Wait till you see club number 2 because that experience is just going to get cooler and cooler.
Literally.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah. No pun intended.
And you guys have even expanded out here. I've seen them go. You've gone from inside to now like lining the sidewalks, rooftop events.
So we do events.
Yeah.
Like we just did over 220 people, a run club into a live ice bath class with a DJ set. So we lined up 10 ice baths on Sunset Boulevard. I wanted to make this live billboard activation, but also like we're limited because I can't do events right now. And I'm like inside. So I'm like, I'm going to bring it outside and we're going to put on a show for Sunset.
Wow.
And it was so much fun. And everyone was just like, that's what I'm saying. Like, how do we create that social environment that brings all these people together and also enhance their health. And the response from it was incredible. And like I said, like these classes were one of my favorite parts on my retreats that I would always host. So to bring that to Sunset Boulevard was
Right here.
amazing. Not only from a marketing point of view, but also just like it was cool. So we have 2 big events this year that we'll be doing that, not here. One I can't publicly announce, but hopefully you guys will see it on other people's socials. We just signed an NDA with it. But the other one's at the LA Marathon. We're doing it in the VIP section at the finish line.
Perfect.
Which is cool. But yeah, huge hit. Then we have the cryotherapy. We have the Balancer Pro, which is this lymphatic drainage massage suit, vitamin IVs, vitamin injections, functional medicine. We call it the movement element, which is what I curated in my practice, which is it's a blend of chiropractic, physio, and Chinese medicine all within one treatment.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
The best manual work that you'll ever have on your body.
Okay.
Takes care of the joints, the muscles, and the fascia. Instead of going to 3 different doctors, 3 different philosophies, 1 doctor, 1 philosophy, 3 treatments in one.
Perfect.
I promise you, if you think you're thinking of getting surgery, but you want to look at alternative options, call us. If you're in pain, this is your solution.
Wow.
And even if you just want to feel better or perform better, that thing, like I had a 6-month wait list in my practice before for that treatment.
Oh, shit.
I didn't have time. I was legitimately out of time.
Wow.
Now Dr. Redante, the director of the department, crushing it. He has like a 3-week wait list. We had an unfortunate event that one of our other doctors had to leave unexpectedly for some health reasons. But she started within 2 months. She was getting full. Like, I'm just excited because there's a lot of training that goes into that treatment style that we're putting on through there. So
That sounds very in depth.
yeah. So we're just about to onboard another one. But hopefully we'll have like 3 of those doctors per club, because I promise you, like, it is the best manual work that you'll ever get. And just the success rate. And it's also what Remedy Place, if that treatment didn't exist and I didn't have that, I would have never been able to build Remedy, because all the investors of Remedy are patients of mine.
Wow. Wow. So they practice what they preach. They're in it.
Yeah.
For all the right reasons.
We had some beautiful stories, and whether it was saving them from surgery or fixing a chronic issue, and they just saw how hard I was working, and they saw what I wanted to do, but they didn't understand it at the time. They get it now.
They believed in you. They didn't see the vision. They believed in you.
And they're like, if you can bring any of this to the masses, like, this is something we want to be a part of. And we like you, and we know what you're going to do. And when I said, we're going to create the world's first social wellness club, they're like, what, a spa? And I'm like, no, not a spa. No one got it. And it was funny because a lot of the investors, it took until we opened that they're like, oh, so this is what, like, no one
Now
knew.
we're getting it.
Yeah, now we get it.
Yeah.
And now it's taking off.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, like, you were right. So it's so exciting.
It is. It's so exciting. And honestly, it's for someone like myself who, like I said, I've been on my wellness journey for like 16 years. And the more and more I unravel about myself, my human body, the more and more I feel like I also unravel about the human body, human potential. And I'm vested. I believe it. I study it. I analyze it. I pay attention to the quantitative and the qualitative.
Yeah.
But I pay attention to me. But real quick, as we begin to kind of wrap up here, I know there's someone listening, someone watching who is still the skeptic of what is an IV drip going to do for me? IR sauna is just, I'm sweaty. Okay, cool. I'm not getting any benefit. Like, how do you kind of convey the information to someone who is still, I don't know yet, that this stuff will actually help you here and now acutely, but also as prevention?
Yeah. I would say be open to a first experience, and I can prove to you what you want. I think the first step, there's no reason to ever have judgment or to have such a perspective on something that you've never tried. And I think it's a tough thing. It's like in life, like we were saying before, science is always changing. Things we're told are now wrong, or
or at least different.
Yeah, or different. And it's like, what's the harm in giving it a shot? And I think if you don't give it a shot, you're missing out on something really valuable. arguably the most important thing that you can do for your health. And it doesn't mean these flashy toys and technologies and fancy doctors. It's like foundational health is very simple. You know, if you're in pain, learning how to move properly. If you're sick, what are you putting in your body? Because that's fueling or fighting disease. If you're having trouble with your mental health, what are we really doing to really dive into your breath work or meditations and like finding something that clicks? We don't need money for those things. You know, for learning how to move, there's enough things on YouTube that are free. Learning how to eat, there's enough, you know, look to Remedy Place in the future with our podcast or like anything that we can do to give out that free education. And I really it's a big philosophy of mine to make sure people understand that we don't need all of these things in Remedy. You know, I think they're extremely important, but if you're not doing the foundational things, that is the most important thing, you know? And those things don't cost money.
Yeah, truly.
And I think too is sometimes, you know, with certain things, even with a chiropractor, you know, some people are like, I know someone that had a bad experience, or I went to, you know, one and something didn't feel right. Every profession has people that are amazing at their profession and some that could use a little bit more work. Don't let one experience ruin a whole entire thing that you could be missing out on because maybe you didn't have the right connection with that individual that was doing it.
And I think that's it. And what a perfect way to kind of bring it full circle is that connection with that individual.
Huge.
We talked about in the beginning of the level of trust and rapport and comfort that I think often goes overlooked in the quality of care. The quality of care with a healer, the quality of care with you, the relationship with the self, your environment. Like that is something that I think gets overlooked too often.
It's arguably, like I said, outside of obviously our experiences, the treatments, the environment, but who is administering, you need to be connected with that individual. You need to have trust with that individual. If you are going to somebody and you're like, oh, you know, I just don't like that guy or girl, you know, like, oh, I just feel like something's off. Listen to your gut. You don't have to go to that person. It's like dating, you know, like just because you can have a million people that are the top experts and like you like love them as a person and what they're doing, but if you don't feel like, all right, there's a connection here, that's gonna slow down not saying that you can't get the results, because I think the results can still get there.
It's going to put a cap, some kind of inhibition.
Yeah, and I think and I tell patients all the time, like, this is partially an interview. It's like, are we a right fit? Because if I don't feel connected with you, then maybe I'm not a good fit for you.
Am I going to be able to correctly navigate the course of treatment? Yeah.
Because it's a bond, you know, like this energetic exchange between two humans, this connections. It's like either there's a connection or there's not. And I think that's important in business. I think it's important in your health. I think it's important in your friendships, your relationships, your family.
Are we vibing or not?
Yeah. Like, and
truly.
And it's not a bad thing if you're not. You know, I think a lot of people are like fighting to like make certain things work. There's nothing wrong with not being connected with somebody, because at that moment in time where you're both at in your life, maybe it doesn't mean that you can never be connected with that individual.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's so important, just like never fight. Either it's like you're equally attracted, and it's not like a physical attraction. Either you're attracted or you're not.
Yeah.
At that time. And trust yourself.
Well, Jonathan, it's been amazing having you on the show here, man. Thank you so much for opening up Remedy twice now. This is my second time being here for interviews, and I don't even know how many times, just in general. I love this place, love what you're doing.
Thanks, man.
The philosophy and the mindset behind it. And speaking of mindset, to kind of bring it back into my world a little bit, living a life ever forward.
Yeah.
I firmly believe is attention and awareness into these key areas of our life that help us take a step forward.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be the right next step, but just a next step. Because I firmly believe also that where the mind goes, the body will follow.
Yeah.
And so much of our health, so much of our physical health, so much of our life, our business, our wellness can truly start with just a shift in our mindset.
Yeah.
And so my last question I ask everybody is my philosophy of ever forward. What does that mean to you? When you hear just those two words, what does it mean to you to live a life ever forward?
I think it means um, being ever forward, just understanding that you you control a lot of things in your life, and whether you control how you react to things happening, or you control to the hard work that you're putting into anything. The power of a thought or an intention is so important. I don't think science will ever catch up, maybe even in our lifetime, I hope it does, to the actual power of that mindset. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to understand, because it took even me so long to understand it. But what you're thinking and what you want and what you're manifesting, if you're really believing in something, like, it's possible. Like, anything is possible. Being ever forward means, like, this is your life. You can do anything you want with it. So, like, really take the time, understand what you're grateful for, understand what you want, understand the changes that you want in your life, and make it happen. Because I think you and every individual in the world has the potential to do that. And don't let anyone say that you can't be ever forward, because there's only one direction we can go in life. That is forward.
We're all on that path forward,
Yeah.
whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
That we can't go backwards. And if you think about the metaphysics of everything, we're technically not ever still just here. We're constantly just going.
I think it's like 90% of stressors are things in the past or that we have no control over. So, like, instead of focusing everything on all the things that we can't control, focus everything on the 10% we can control.
Yeah.
And take it and run, because life can be something really special, but it's up to us, or up to that individual.
Yeah, truly. Well, again, thank you so much. This has been great. I'm going to have all of your information for you and for Remedy Place down in the show notes for everybody to check out. And if you're in LA, come here. And if you're in other places soon to be announced in the world, go there as well. This is the time, this is the place, this is the opportunity to take back your health for a lot of people.
Yep.
And for others, maybe you're already on that journey to just optimize it and excel and just get feedback in ways that maybe you never thought were possible.
And have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring back that human connection.
Seriously.
Change up your social environment a little bit. And we're here because we want to help, and we want to make sure that we're being a positive impact to your life.
Well, I'll kill the interview there. That was so great. Thank you so much.